She got off at Roosevelt Park stop, which was a half block from the park itself. Sprawled over the large corner lot was a place called Jesus is Lord Used Tires. You couldn't make a mistake about the name. It was painted in big, cramped blue letters over the door, with periods inserted between the words. Jesus is Lord Used Tires. On the side of the pleated tin building, there was a large picture of Jesus with outstretched hands and yellow streamers of light emanating from his head. There was also a white-walled tiger, perhaps added to the mural as an afterthought, and probably meant to have no direct connections with the Lord. But it hung in the air below his left hand, very much like a large yo-yo. Jesus appeared to be on the verge of performing a around the world or some other fancy trick. Top-heavy, chin-high stacks of firestones and Michelins at the edge of the paved lot formed a wall between Jesus is Lord and a combination nightclub and pornography shop next door called Fanny Heaven. There was no mistake in this place either. The front windows were whitewashed and large signs painted over them declared "Girls, Girls, Girls," and on one side of the door, and total nudity on the other. On the front door of Fanny Heaven was a life-size likeness of a woman with long red hair and a leopard skin bikini. Public art of various types was popular on this block. Luann nearly walked past both of these establishments nearly every day. Something about the Jesus is Lord place reminded her of Kentucky, and she always meant to ask, if she only had the nerve, if the people there came from her part of the country. Fanny Heaven she just tried to ignore. There was something innocent and primitive about the painting on the door, as though the leopard bikini lady might have been painted by a school child, except that she was positioned in such a way that the door handle, when a person pushed it in, would sink into her crotch. This door always gave Luann the shivers, though she tried not to give it a second thought. She rounded the corner and stopped to do some grocery shopping at the leasing market, which faced the park directly across from her, from where she and Aunt Angel lived. She bought most of the items recommended by the diet pamphlet, but some of them, like yogurt, were too expensive. She bought a package of macaroons because they were on Angel's favor. The Chinese woman at the cash register was Li Sing. Her mother, who's said to be more than 100 years old, lived with her in the back of the store. Li Sing told Luann she was going to have a girl. "She's high, up here," Li Sing said, tapping her bony fist above her stomach. She said this to Luann every time she came in. "Either way is okay with me," Luann said, although she was somewhat curious to see if Li Sing would be right. Li Sing shook her head as she rang the cash register, and muttered something that sounded to Luann like New Year's pig. "Beg your pardon?" Luann was a little afraid of Li Sing, who often said peculiar things like this. "Feeding a girl is like feeding the neighbor's New Year pig. All that work. In the end, it goes to some other family." Luann felt offended, but didn't really know how to answer. She was a long way from her own family in Kentucky, but she didn't see this as being entirely her fault. And it wasn't as if her brother had stuck any closer to home either. He had gone north to work on the Alaskan pipeline and had married a Canadian dog trainer. They had 4 daughters with Eskimo names, and Luann couldn't keep them straight. Things that sound like Chinook and Winnebago. Outside it was beginning to get dark. Luann crossed the park in a hurry, skirting around an old wooden trellis where several transients were congregating. As usual, she tried to concentrate on not being afraid. Angel had told her that some people, like dogs, can smell fear. When she got home, she saw that Angel had already been home from work and had left again, for good. She was confused at first and thought they had been robbed, until she began to see a pattern that was taken. She wandered around the house with her grocery bag, looking at the half-empty house. After 4 years, there was very little, other than clothes, that she thought of as a belonging clearly to one or the other. In a strange way, she was fascinated to see what he had claimed for his own. He revealed more to her about his personality, she thought, than she had learned during their whole marriage. He left all of the sheets and blankets, the knickknacks, and all the kitchen things, except for 3 matching beer mugs. He had taken some of the old magazines and paperback mysteries from the shelf. She didn't miss the books so much, as she was hurt by the ugly empty spaces left behind, like missing teeth, the books on either side falling or crowding into gaps. Gone from the bedroom was a picture of Angel taken at the rodeo in 1978. In the picture, he was sitting on top of a bull named S.O.B., which is supposedly to be the meanest bull in the history of rodeo. In the entire year 1978, only one rider had stayed on S.O.B. for 8 seconds. Angel wasn't the one. At the time of this particular photo, the animal was doped up on PCP, which the roadies used to drug the bulls and horses when they moved them around. PCP was common as dirt in that line of work. Angel's rodeo name had been Dusty, which was short for Angel Dust. He also had taken on one clean towel, the only tube of toothpaste, and the TV. Luann had forgotten it was Halloween, and was completely bewildered when a mob of children came to the door. She was frightened by their dark, darting pupils peering through their little holes in their bright plastic masks. She knew they were neighborhood children she had seen 1,000 times, but in their costumes she couldn't tell who they were. To calm herself down, she talked to them and tried to guess whether each one was a boy or a girl. She guessed correctly on the princess, the green-faced witch, Frankenstein, and the Incredible Hulk, also green. The extraterrestrials she got wrong. Now she remembered why she had needed to go to the leasing market. She didn't have any candy to give out. She considered giving them pieces of fruit or macarons, but this would be a waste of money. Their mothers would probably go through their bags and throw things like that away, fearing cyanide and razor blades. On television, they said everything should be sealed in the original wrapper. The children seemed to feel sorry for her, but they were growing impatient. They expected adults to be prepared. "You better give us something or we'll have to soap your windows, Miss Reese," the extraterrestrial said half-heartedly. Luann decided to go and shake out the Mickey Mouse bank, in which she had been saving pennies to buy a washing machine for the baby's diapers. Angel had laughed at her, saying the baby would have kids of its own before she could save that many pennies. The children seemed satisfied with the pennies and went away. She left Mickey by the door so she would be better organized for the next round. About 11 o'clock, Luann's feet were killing her. She could feel her heartbeat in her ankles. For 3 or 4 weeks, Luann's feet had been so swollen that she could only wear one particular pair of shoes, which had a strap across the ankle. And now, she was going to have to go to bed with these shoes on. She couldn't bend over far enough to unbuckle the straps, and Angel was not there to do it for her. If she had thought of it, she might have asked the last bunch of trick-or-treat kids to do it, but it was too late now. As she was getting ready for bed, she caught sight of herself in the mirror and thought she looked disgusting or pornographic in her nightgown and pantyhose and shoes. Like someone who would work at Fanny Heaven, though of course they wouldn't have pregnant women there. Still, the thought upset her. She turned out the light but kept listening for sounds that might be more kids coming to the door. Or it might be Angel changing his mind, coming home. In her other ear, pressed against the pillow, she could hear the blood pumping all the way down to her feet. It sounded something like the ocean, which she had seen once with Angel in Mexico. The baby nudged and poked at her what felt like fingers, but must be tiny elbows or feet. She thought about the baby playing in waves of her blood on the smooth dark beach of her insides. Her feet hurt, and she couldn't find a comfortable place in bed. Finally, late at night, she cried until her eye sockets fell empty. At the beach she had gotten sea water in her eyes, and they felt like this. Annelle had warned her to keep them shut, but she had wanted to see where she was going. You never knew what kind of thing could be down there under the water.